by going out fast, he baited both of the guys that he needed to put distance between to go out with him.
I think online competitions are lame. And so I went to bed thinking I was getting it on with my fiance, and then I woke up actually just caressing my mother-in-law's leg.
What the heck?
And then her dad is standing at the door, like, just like shook, like, I'm not looking for like a participation medal. And like, there's a lot of people that I've met and spoken to who like the end goal for them is just to qualify.
I wanted to kick off with, right before this podcast, Ruth told me that you're a type 1 diabetic.
Yeah.
What the heck, man? Are you going to be okay? How long do you have to live?
I don't think it's like that anymore. Yeah. I mean, hopefully I live a normal length of time. There's some weird studies coming out with like people, living just as long, and actually like not benefits to it, but if you can manipulate it right for sport and things like that. But yeah, I've been diabetic since I was 14 years old. Now I'm 26, so I've had it 12 years.
And you're type 1?
Yeah, type 1, so I don't produce any insulin. So I have to inject insulin basically every
time. So at 13 years old, you did produce insulin?
Yeah. When I was diagnosed, they said like you'd have like 6 months of like your insulin's going to kind of like, you still produce a little bit, and then probably over 6 months, you'll produce nothing by the end.
How much?
Well, did you have like a viral infection and then?
Yeah. So I think I went to Egypt and got ill when I came home. And then like 2-3 months later, I didn't really like, when you're a kid, you just think everything's normal, right? Like you don't like, I don't know. So basically I lost 20 kilograms, which is
44 pounds.
Yeah, 44
You thought that was normal?
Well, you just like a kid cracking on, like you don't think too much. And I went to boarding school, so I wasn't like around my parents to be like, this is weird. And yeah, I'd lost that weight in like 3 months, just over 3.5 months. And I was playing like a lot of sport at the time. And I remember just being like, I just need to eat more and all that kind of stuff. And then,
were you a skinny kid before this or bigger?
Nah, I was always like a bit chunky, I guess.
Okay, so you were like, heck yeah, I'm losing some weight.
Nah, not like I wasn't fat. I was just like, I don't know, like a normal 14-year-old kid at the time. But I would used to go around my mate's house on weekends, and his mum was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like she just like noticed a few things. Like I was going to the toilet like literally like every 10 minutes, because that's like how, when you don't produce insulin but you eat carbohydrates, your blood sugar increases, and one of the ways your body gets rid of that is to basically pee it out. So she was just noticing some weird things, and it turns out she thought one of her kids was also diabetic, like 3-4 years prior, but it was nothing. So she was like, I think you're kind of ill, you should go to the hospital the next day. So then I got back to school and saw a nurse, and yeah, they diagnosed me that night.
That's crazy. So you still in touch with your friend and your friend's mom?
No.
She really saved your life there.
Yeah, she did help me out, but I'm still in touch with them on and off.
Nice. And so how much did that affect, moving forward? Big life changes, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
I don't really know much about type 1 diabetes. Is it a tight-knit community, and are y'all like against the type 2ers, or like y'all all come together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against them, but they're not like, they're not the same. They're not built like us. Like they're, type 2 is, maybe you call it self-inflicted. Type 1 is a lot of actually like vaccine injuries now are coming out for type 1, and genetic disorders and all this kind of stuff. But yes, type 1 is you don't produce any insulin. Type 2 is you produce insulin, but your sensitivity is so poor and your basically metabolic health is so bad that it's ineffective.
Yeah, the way I've understood it is that the type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle related diabetes, inactivity, diet related, and type 1 is you're just unlucky to some degree.
I think you can actually get both.
Really? I
think type 1, so for example, if I was super out of shape and eating terrible and never exercised and then injected insulin to try and absorb carbohydrates, but if I'm in that bad of shape, my insulin wouldn't be effective.
Yeah, because that's going to impact insulin sensitivity. One of the things, I remember this just from forever ago, but strength training or resistance training specifically increases the insulin receptors on the muscle cell surface.
Yeah.
And so if someone doesn't do resistance training and they're constantly flooding their body with, insulin that they inject, if they're type 1, it would make sense that they'd eventually be insulin resistant And then like, what do? Because then you don't produce insulin and you also aren't sensitive to insulin. So it's like you're up a shit creek without a paddle.
Yeah. It's actually been a massive challenge for the first at least 8 years. Like I was getting ambulance call outs like once a week or.
What does that mean? Like you had to have them show up and.
Yeah, like I would be, I don't know, my fiance would find me passed out in bed fitting or something, or like I would just be like passed out like 3-4 times a day. And that kind of.
Hold on, how old are you now?
I'm 26 now.
And you found out at 14.
Yeah.
Got it. Actually, let's circle back because I want to know how you got into CrossFit, and then I want to circle back to how the Type 1 has affected training and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, what brought you into the CrossFit world?
So I was my like dream when I was a kid was to play professional rugby. But it just never, for whatever reason, it never worked out, whether I quit early or whatever happened. I just never made a pro contract. So when I left school, I ended up getting a job to go and coach out in Australia for a year as like an assistant teacher / assistant rugby coach. And then when I came back, I was like, cool, like I've just finished school. I went from playing rugby 5 times a week to now nothing. And then my mate was like, oh, like you should try CrossFit basically. Like he went to, I think, 1 class prior.
What year is this?
2019.
2019. And so when he told you about it, did you just go to a class or did you do some digging online?
I was like legit like a rugby gym bro at the time. So we were just like thought we knew what we were doing in the gym and just like basically just lots of bodybuilding around our training. And I was like, oh, you know what? Like I'll give it a go. And then it's just like typical first time CrossFit story. Like the gym owner's there. He takes the class. He's topless. The workout is Fran. Like, and he's like going head to head with me, like just like so unneeded. But like I remember, yeah, like doing Fran, throwing up outside, being like, this is awesome.
Do you remember your time?
No clue. But like it would have been strict pull ups. The thrusters wouldn't have been thrusters. Like
yeah, the thruster was floating 5 inches. My first CrossFit workout was Fran too. Chris, what was yours?
Mine was Diane. Is that the handstand push-up
deadlift?
Yeah.
What great introduction. No wonder we're all still in here.
Yeah.
6 years.
It was a hot summer day too. It was brutal.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Anyway, back to Toby though. So you did the class and then did you like go do a whole bunch of research on CrossFit or did you just keep it chill like going into the gym?
No, weirdly when I was in school in the last few years of playing rugby, I just like started watching all the CrossFit documentaries. I remember being like, oh, like if rugby doesn't work out, this will be a thing for me. But then like you kind of just forget about it. I also like that year, classic just first year away from school, you end up smoking too much and you kind of forget everything. And then when you finally get back into CrossFit or into a normal routine, I remember.
Are we talking cigarettes or are you doing some drugs here?
Not cigarettes. But yeah, like I remember then getting back into a routine, but like, oh, like I remember like, it like, I don't know how, but it didn't link between like, I'd literally absorbed all these CrossFit documentaries, like from the Froning 5 one or Froning 4.
Yep.
To whatever year that was in, 2018, 2019. I remember just being like so pumped about this and then just forgot about it. Things happen in life and then came back to it. And yeah, and then after that class, it was again, probably typical CrossFit experience. The coach comes up to you and is like, oh, like, I think you could go to the CrossFit Games. And you're like, sweet, like, let's do it. And then it's just like a rabbit hole of 6 years later and we're here now. But
so pretty early on, you started wanting to compete at a high level?
Yeah, like immediately. Like in the first class, I was like, I can beat everyone.
And did you jump into lots of local comps or what did you do?
Nah, there was like a few, I don't know, athletes who were good in the area, I guess, and just trained with them. Like, I didn't know anything about how to train for CrossFit, and I just jumped in with them. They were like actually some YouTubers and then another athlete who just...
Some YouTubers?
Yeah.
Nice. Where was this at again?
In Norwich.
Norwich. Okay,
Yeah,
where's
that? East Midlands in the UK.
UK, got it.
Yeah. So they're called the Lean Machines. I don't know if you guys know them. Probably not. Maybe.
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them.
Anyway, they got me into it and just like took me under their wing, and even like they took me around events in the UK and they just got me involved in it really at a time where I didn't really have much else going on. And then, yeah, just like if you told me now if you told me then, like, what I would have to do, probably wouldn't have been as interested. But now you end up just like, I've come this far. Like, I might as well carry on.
Why did you stay with it?
It's so fun. Like, there's no... I'm still trying to figure out how to make a full-time career of it. But there's nothing else I want to do right now. Like, this is as good as it gets in my head.
And Kyle, how did he come onto your radar?
He reached out to Training Think Tank, and I think had John, had gone back and forth trying to pair him with a coach, and he had basically said he wanted to work with Max or I think was the gist of it. And Max was full, and I was at the time I was actually full, but I had just taken on Jake Hendry, who was training in Dubai, and Jake was like, yeah, you should he recommended that I take on Toby, and he's like, we can train together. And so in my head, I was like, oh man, this is a really good opportunity to get these two guys training together. And for me, it was like, well, they're going to share Saturday sessions, maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday session. So I looked at it like, well, the workload isn't going to be that crazy. And even though I'm going over my cap, it's going to be okay. Well, I had this initial call with him because we did like a 15-minute discovery call first. And just almost immediately in that conversation, I was like, I like this guy a lot. And he reminds me of a 26, 25-year-old version of myself. All of the things he was saying, like, oh yeah, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are the struggles I've had in the sport. It's harder for me to qualify for something. Then I get there and I do, and I'm like, I've had all those exact same problems in my own personal CrossFit career. And so I was like, man, I feel like it would be an easy, I say this now, I say this then, I would not say this now. It was super easy to coach him, or it would be. And so that was kind of like our initial conversation. Then I think you went and talked to some other coaches, right?
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of different coaches from, I don't know whether I should say the names.
I don't care if you say them.
Other training programs. But I talked to, coaches from... other coaches from America, from Europe, from Australia, from...
So you just did like a shotgun approach, like reach out to everybody. And
I had a lot of conversations, and to be honest, like I've also, since I got into CrossFit in 2019, I've absorbed so much content and education from Training Think Tank. And so it's always been like, I don't know whether I knew at the time, but you kind of have a rough idea of, I think this is what the training's going to look like, and it just aligned. It just worked well. So, yeah.
If you didn't go with Kyle, who was second place?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably would have gone back to my old coach.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so y'all went and you just qualified at what was the name of the event again?
Rebel Renegade Games.
Rebel Renegade Games. And that was going on at the same time as WFP, right?
No, it was going on at the same time as Syndicate.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was something at the same time, so I didn't get to watch.
Torian?
And Torian, yeah. All three.
So what was that experience like?
Coaching him while I was also coaching at Syndicate. Yeah. It was a lot of
smooth sailing until...
It was a lot of really early mornings for me because the time difference for the events had it so that I was basically waking up at like 4 a.m. to watch. And I was coaching him and Jake Hendry and Sarah Sigmund's daughter at Rebel Renegade Games, and then Tanner at Syndicate. So I'd be up at 4:30 to watch their events and kind of like check in with them after they get done with their first events. And then at that point, I wasn't going back to sleep because I just watched my athletes compete. And then I don't know, they were busy days, but we spent a lot of time beforehand making sure that we'd rehearsed all of the little details, like how are you going to what are your warm-ups? We practiced the warm-ups as part of the rehearsal for the events, because we did have the events.
Yeah, I think they were pretty generous with how much time they gave us, and even 3 months out, or whenever the qualifiers were for them, they were telling us it was going to be like a 4-day event with 10 different workouts, which we were like, this is perfect, like let's do it. Because I know something like Mayhem was half of that, 2 days, 5 events, which for me, I'm like, the more events, the better. Like, I want to make this like an absolute beatdown.
Yeah, Toby's a pretty well-rounded athlete, even though he definitely has some strengths. Like, he's a really strong athlete relative to the field. But
yeah, since most people he hasn't been on their radar, I won't make you describe yourself. So, Kyle, what is his like strengths, weaknesses?
Well, he's definitely a strength and power biased athlete. I think naturally just very strong. When he came on board, and you maybe correct me if some of these metrics are wrong, but I have all my athletes fill out this list of, what's your 1RM front squat, what's your 1RM snatch, all this stuff. And his snatch was like 300 to 305, clean was over 400, rowing metrics, it was like a 6, I think in the 16s or 620, 2K row. I mean, across the board, his metrics were really good. But what I noticed was that he just struggled to put it all together in a CrossFit setting. So it was like he had all of the components that are required to be a high level competitor, but didn't necessarily put them together well in CrossFit, and also needed some development in longer time domain, cyclical work and Metcons, which, like I said, it reminds me a lot of a younger version of myself. So he's a very strength and power biased athlete, but now I think we've been able to take some of those metrics and turn them into a pretty well-rounded athlete across the board.
Yeah, it's fun. I was speaking to Lydia like 2 days ago. And she said, "Oh, like, what are your strengths and like what are you good at? Like, what are you bad at?" I'm like, "Oh, like, I used to be good at this, and now like I'm just kind of average at everything." She goes, "Yeah, same. I used to be really good at things, and now I'm just like okay across the board." And it's like that's kind of how it feels now, being a more balanced athlete. It's like you don't hit the home runs, but I mean, even Medeiros won the games without winning an event, right? Like, it really is about consistency, especially in live events. If you take like a last place, like, you have to really do something special the rest of the weekend to come back to it.
Well, I also think for a rookie athlete, someone who's trying to get to the CrossFit Games, you really do have to kind of like flatten out their performance to some degree and bring up a lot of the things that are weaker. And once you get to that point and you start to become more of like an athlete who can qualify for the CrossFit Games already, then the next step is, all right, now let's take those things that we know you're already good at. And this is kind of like the future for Toby. But like, we know that we can drive strength metrics up really quickly with good training, but he had to have all the rest of the components built in order to do that. So that's kind of like our long-term vision. I mean,
we've only been working together for 12 months now, and the first 3-4 months of that was kind of like off season. I was on holidays, rehabbing my shoulder, like just base building, and then we've literally competed nearly every month since then. Yeah. So it's like we've not really had a off season yet of being like a better athlete and understanding how we work together, I guess.
Yeah,
which will be good after the games, hopefully.
So the numbers that Kyle just rattled off that he said he got in the initial consult, they're all pretty good. And so that was after doing CrossFit since 2019. What was your training like in your rugby days? Were you already pretty damn athletic and strong?
I mean, I guess so. No one...
Like, you got after it. You went and trained.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember our rugby coach banning us from the gym because at the time he thought we were gymming too much, basically. Like, we used to have like match days on Saturday and we'd be banned from the gym on Fridays, and all we'd try and do is like sneak in the gym and get like, I remember all we tried to work on was like our traps, biceps and bench press basically. and then occasionally we'd like max out our squat, which would have been terrible. But so that was it. Like, I was playing rugby from when I was like 14 to 18 years old. I was probably playing rugby 5-6 days a week, whether that was training or matches. And then also gymming 4 or 5 times a week. And it was also at the school at the time didn't have like any, compared to America, facilities. Like, our facility was literally like kind of a garage gym. And like, there's no program, there's no like strength and conditioning prescription. It was just like, once you're a certain age at the school, you could go to the gym, and we'd try and sneak in like a few years early anyway. And like, I wish I could go back and like see some of the stuff that was going on in that gym, because it's just like, there was no supervision. Like, there was no adult in the room. It was just like the blind leading the blind with like 16.
You and the boys and Metallica blasting.
Yeah, exactly. Like 16-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 17-year-olds just like all simultaneously maxing out something like the spines and the legs and the knees. Like it would have been disgusting to watch, but those were good days for sure.
I love that you think that American strength and conditioning programs are more organized than that, but that was exactly what our high school strength and conditioning room was like.
Yeah.
I wrote my high school strength and conditioning program for myself in my conditioning class and did it. And we'll just say it involved a lot of bench press, maybe a little bit of lat pull over and pull down, a squat here or there.
Yeah.
And that was basically it.
Just Steve Cook tutorials.
Yeah.
Here's what's crazy is so you
man on campus.
You always hear these kind of stories, you know, oh, all we did was bench press and, you know, like upper body stuff. And, you know, being part of the CrossFit world, you kind of grow to roll your eyes at that and be like, yeah, that's not ideal. But then on the flip side of that, all you guys built this awesome upper body base that if you did that, you come into this with it. What's there to be said about that, Kyle?
Yeah, I think, man, I was talking.
Yeah, it's dumb long-term training, but like
it is dumb long-term training. But I think at a young
especially when
age,
testosterone's rolling,
whatever gets someone who's that age into fitness is good training from a long-term perspective, because that's what gets them hooked on it. Like Toby wouldn't be in here having this conversation being a rookie CrossFit Games athlete if he hadn't done that dumb training and have fun doing it with the boys.
We said this last week in the car. We're like, if we started the gym at, I don't know, whenever we were 15 years old, and some like gym nerd came up to us with a program being like, oh, like you should do 4x5 and you should do this by this, like 100% I'll just be disinterested in it within a week. Like,
yeah. Oh, you need auto. Now, if someone came to me with like West Side methods when I was
I just
16 or
wouldn't
17,
want someone telling me.
Dude, no, if I was 16 or 17 and someone came with West Side methods and they were like, do this and you're going to get your bench squat and dead up, I'd have been like, yes.
Yeah. Louis Simmons busting the door.
Yeah.
You need some box squats. Laura Phelps, 475 box squat.
Exactly. I would have been all about, especially if someone came in with chains as a 16-year-old and you're like, whoa, I can put, 325 on my back.
I remember literally like maxing out bench, squat, deadlift every week for 2 years. Like,
yeah. And a max out, God, I remember the first time I benched 135. So I think I was a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And I weighed 135 pounds and all I wanted to do was bench my body weight. And I remember my feet being up in the air and like, ugh.
Just disgusting, but getting it done.
But the strength progression from there, that's the other thing. So Chris was talking about the testosterone, that age of boy, that 14 to 18, man, they are so hyper adaptable to strength training. It is insane how fast they progress at that age.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because I didn't train until I was like 23. Like I was into metal bands. Like I played guitar, did all that. I wasn't like a sport or workout kid. And then I look back, and especially when we have the young guys like Caden, we've had lots of young kids come through here. It's like, if you miss out on that massive puberty testosterone boost in training, you just kind of like miss potential.
Yeah, you're never catching up to that.
I had this long conversation with Ryan we were doing a podcast about teen athletes. And one of the things that we talked about in there is that there are windows for teen athletes for optimization of the aerobic system and then for strength. And the aerobic system windows, it's typically right around puberty, and then the strength window is like right after puberty started. And so for those, like, if you're playing rugby at 12, 13, 14, you do a lot of running. So he kind of took advantage of that aerobic window. And then right after that they opened up the weight room to him, and he got in there and got after the weight room. So he was like optimizing strength training. Not that it was an optimal program, but got in at the right time. And if you miss those windows, man, you've got a big uphill battle to fight to really build a lot of that capacity.
I want to circle back to y'all's weekend where you qualified for the CrossFit Games, but I learned that you had type 1 diabetes. What else about Toby? Like, what's the things that we wouldn't know? You got any crazy life stories? Or
I grew up in a busy house. So I've got one brother, one sister, and then grew up with 3 stepbrothers. So 6 kids, and then we're all 6 years apart.
Do you like the stepbrothers?
Yeah, they're funny. So like we all grew up.
Did you like them at first?
they didn't like us. I think it's the other way around. We were easy. We were living in their house, so it's we were like, this is sweet. But yeah, so we grew up on a farm, and it was just like, it was a dream. Like, I remember when we were, I would have been not even 10. They would have been like 14, 15. And they're like, oh, like, guess what we just got? Like, we just bought ourselves a car. Like, you want to come drive it? And like, or like a motorbike or a quad bike or a new air gun or like whatever it was. Like, that was growing up. So it was so good. Like, obviously I went to boarding school, but in the school holidays when it was just all the kids, like, all we'd do is just play sport, like bully each other and go out and play.
Did you farm at all?
No, that was like, we left that to the stepbrothers. We were too soft for it, basically.
Yeah. What were you doing? Were you in the house playing video games or?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, we tried, like, when I was a kid, we tried to do some of the chores on the farm, and it's just like, it's tough work. Well, it is tough, but it's like, you have to, I couldn't do it for long. Like, one of the jobs was rat sweeping. So like in the corn barns, when you're drying out the corn and maize or barley, whatever it is, there's these like air vents, which are basically tunnels through the barn, and you have to go and sweep them out every now and then to like keep them clean and basically get rid of whatever's down there. So you're crawling through, and like they try and get the kids to do it right, because it's like, if you're an adult, you have to like hunch down the whole time. It's pretty miserable. And this thing's just covered in rats like everywhere, and you're just like crawling around dead rats or live rats at the end and things like that. You're just like, this is disgusting.
Yeah, you talked me out of it.
And then you're like, cool, like I graduated from this job, like what do I do now? And then you're like, okay, like you're on the potato grader, which is like, so when you harvest potatoes, they go through basically this belt, and there's all these people standing on the belt, and you're picking out bad potatoes basically, and like you're just picking up just mold like the whole time. And like, I remember this is a good story. My brother had some mates over and got like really classic, like drunk as a kid. So I probably had like 4 shots of alcohol and was smashed. And then he got like in trouble. And the next day, his punishment was to potato grade at like 5 a.m. And he's just like, just throwing up everywhere on this potato grader. And people are like throwing molded potatoes at him and things like that. So like, I was lucky with my experience as a kid, just growing up and just like being left to do fun stuff.
What was your first actual job?
Outside of the farm, or we also lived on the farm had a farm and a caravan site, so we'd like, I don't know, do jobs between them. But outside of that, I was a lifeguard from when I was 16 to 21.
Any crazy lifeguard stories?
Yeah, I mean, like pulling kids from the water like by their hair, like in the middle of the sea and things like that.
Like you've saved kids?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so again, working with my stepbrother, who was my boss at the time as a lifeguard, we were on the beach once, and some idiot had basically tried to start his boat in the water behind the propeller. It was like a pull start system. So anyway, this idiot had pulled the system and churned up his arm on the propeller basically, and it was like down to like the bone. It's pretty messy. So he'd come up and we're trying to sort this out. And then like the 3 of us are sorting this out, and then like we realized, we've not actually like watched the water for like, I don't know, 3 minutes. So we like literally turn our heads, and as we turn our heads, we're like, okay, there's 2 kids literally about to drown. So I ran out and get the board, and
that sounds stressful as hell.
No shit.
Yeah, run out and get the board, and like I get to the first one, and as I get to the first one, the second one goes under. We pull the first one on, and we're like just looking at the water, like, where is this kid? And then I just like try and reach down and just like grab his hair basically, and then manage to get him on the board.
That's crazy.
So in the span of 5 minutes,
yeah,
a dude
and
loses
like,
his arm and 2
'cause
kids almost drown?
It's classic. Like that was the very last day of the year. Everything the entire year had been like super chilled, like literally nothing going on. And then that was in the last hour of the last day. Like it's just classic. But yeah, that was.
You think that kid knows you're going to the CrossFit games?
Definitely not. His parents, we pulled these 2 kids out and we're like, where are these parents? And they were like nearly like 2 kilometers down the beach, just like having ice creams. But like, that's just British.
Oh man, wouldn't that be wild though, if that kid did get into CrossFit and then he saw you at the games and was like, that's the guy who saved me.
Toby, he was out of shape. That kid needed some CrossFit for sure.
I mean, everybody needs a little bit of CrossFit.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to, or any other crazy things about your life people would not know?
You
You travel a lot.
Toby's a nomad.
Yeah,
So
you have a business?
all of his prep going into Rebel Renegade Games was done in Bali. So you were in Bali for what, 3 months leading in? 2 months?
February, March, April, May, 4 months, 5 months.
And originally when he was like, yeah, I'm going to be in Bali, I'm not going to have any obligations. I'm just going to be able to train. I was like, wow, this is going to be the best prep anyone's had for a semifinal.
I was pumped for it.
It's going to be so good. And then he got out there and the heat and humidity were just absolutely insane, to the point that while he was doing the open, we were legitimately concerned that he might not make the top 1%, only because it was so hot that he couldn't even come close to reaching his actual capacity. Heart rate would be,
maxed out
98% within 30 seconds of starting a workout, and just stay pegged at max for the entire
and
workout.
not even moving. I'm just looking at the floor.
Did you consider leaving?
That's terrible. Yeah, I considered leaving pretty soon actually. And my fiance was like, if you want to go back to Dubai, you can go back to Dubai, but just being a bloke, you're like, nah, this will be fine. And it really wasn't fine. The gym is a great gym, but it's packed. There's 300-400 members in the gym when the classes are on, and even in the open gym, there's just crazy stuff going on.
300 to 400 when the classes is going on?
Yeah, I mean, the classes get above 200 members, and then there'll be another 100 members in the
At
in the
one
gym.
time.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's insane.
Bamboo, right?
Yeah, called Bamboo Fitness, owned by Will and another guy. I can't remember his name. Anyway, yeah, it's a really that is the only gym really where we were living in Bali. And it's a great gym. It's the absolute best you can get, but compared to a US gym, it's nothing. Even the gym is outdoors. There is no walls to the gym. It's in basically a jungle. It's really, really hot. It's really, really humid. Equipment is scarce because it's just so busy. Space is even worse. But that is the best that you can get access to.
So you travel a lot.
Yeah.
And did I get it right? It's because you have your own business, and so you're able to just kind of do your thing?
Yeah. Me and my fiance both, we don't dislike the UK, but we don't want to live there. And so we were in the UK while I was at university, and then we were basically how soon can we get out of the UK? And I got a job in Dubai the week I graduated from university, and flew out maybe a month later to Dubai. And then I worked in Dubai for a year and a half.
Doing what? Coaching?
Coaching at a CrossFit gym. And then after, Dubai is expensive, and as a coach you can earn really good money for the hours you work, but you're still earning probably the same equivalent CrossFit salary you'd earn in the UK, or I don't know about here, but in the UK as a coach, which isn't enough to make it by. So then after I did well at Dubai Fitness Champs, we knew that money was coming in, so we're like, well, we could burn through this money in another year staying in Dubai. Which
how did you do it? The fitness champ.
I came second.
Nice.
Yeah, didn't beat Luca. Still lives rent free in my head. I've competed against that guy too many times to count now, and I've not managed to beat him yet. He actually sent me a message, I think yesterday, being like, you have better chance to beat Jeff Adler than me right now, because you don't know when you're going to compete against me again. So anyway, that guy, he won it. I came second, which was 30,000 prize money, 30 grand, which is unreal. And then also living in Dubai, it's tax free. So we're like, cool, we could burn through 30 grand in the next year and then have nothing, or we could now move. So then we decided to move to Bali, which we were living for free at my sister-in-law's place. Things just fell into place basically. But Dubai was good if you're in a hyper-focused state and motivated and want to either earn money or really driven to do what you do. But for my fiance, who basically just works online, it's not that fulfilling. I mean, it's not that fulfilling in general, really, unless you're super selfish in what you want to do and just driven to try and improve things. So
I think we went to Dubai, or I went to Dubai in 2018 for one of those.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Dubai Chili's?
Dubai Chili's.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Chili's there?
Yeah, that was right
What?
next to my hotel.
How did I miss that?
What's Chili's?
You know, like baby back ribs,
No.
barbecue sauce.
All right. Well, anyway, I guess we should finally circle back to that weekend. So the weekend starts. You're doing pretty good. How did that go?
Are we at Rebel? Where?
We're,
What weekend?
we're heading back to Rebel Renegade.
Yeah.
I want the story of how that weekend played out.
Okay.
Event 1.
Event 1 was good. Event 1 was the Mayhem 30-30-30, so 30 calorie bike, 30 bar muscle ups, 30 calorie bike, and that workout just went as planned. Went really, really well.
Toby had, I think, the second fastest time in the world on that workout, but they also had some really strange bikes.
The bikes were a bit weird. They're like kind of a hybrid between an assault bike and an echo bike, but yeah. So that happened. That went well. Event 2 was then reverse 333.
Hold on. We don't have to go through all the events, but what was the key story points of this event?
Okay, so 9 events in total. Across 6 events. 6 events had already been, and I'd built up basically an 80-point lead. And we're like, sweet. Still one more 80-point lead across 6 events. There's still 3 more to go, which we were confident for. And then the best, another really good event for me was coming up. And I was like, sweet, I can win this event too. So I could get potentially a 100-point lead going into the final day on event 8 and 9.
I remember, so that finished the last event on the second to last day, and we had a call, and I was like, all right, look, you got an 80-point lead. You don't have this thing in the bag. You have to come out and you have to execute. But right now, your focus is going out there and just do, you don't have to win any more events. You just have to go out there and do the best that you can and execute, and you're going to punch your ticket. And I told him a story about when I was in a position to get my games ticket in 2013, and then in the first event on the last day, lost it. I literally had a 28-point lead and then lost it right there. And so I told him this story and was like, don't be like me. You want to go out here and execute and not focus on being in this leader spot, or being in this spot where you're going to get your games ticket. And then there was a handstand sprint, which was for time, 36-meter handstand walk, and whatever happened. I'll take responsibility for it. I'm the athlete. It's my fault. But basically there was 2 lines that were a meter apart on the finish line that looked identical. That's 3 feet for everybody in the
US.
Anyway, basically I came down 3 feet early on the line that I thought was the finish line, and I thought I heard an okay from the judge, because the judge was obviously quick event, and he's like, yes, distance good, good. And then I thought I heard an okay. Came down, turns out that was the wrong line, had to go back. Then
he came down, ran all the way across the floor.
Yeah, I thought I'd finished, yeah. And then anyway, messed that up in a event like that. If you don't just have a smooth run, you're going to be last. And so out of 30 athletes or 29 athletes, I finished 26th. So waking up on the final day in an event where I thought I could win it again, I went from an 80-point lead to a 4-point lead going into the final day.
Ooh,
So Kyle,
how did you sleep that night?
Yeah, not good. Kyle just went, right, you just start from 0 basically. The competition's brand new. You got 2 events, and then
Yeah, forget what Kyle said. What was going on in your head? Were you forcing yourself to be cool and calm, or were you really freaking out?
Looked like a lot was going on in his head at that point.
It's just typical. It's just is what it is. Actually, in my head, I basically had in my head, I was like, what would the best in the world do right now? And I'm like, well, in this field, they would find a way to win. Was the mindset I was telling myself of winners win. Even if, no matter how much you fuck up, winners find a way to win. And if you think you're half as good as what you think you are, you'll find a way to beat the field. Because don't get me wrong, the guys I was competing against were good, but there wasn't any depth to the field as there was in other semifinals. So yeah, that's what I was telling myself basically going to the final day. And then it ended up happening, but it was definitely more stressful than it needed to be. But
at what point in the competition did you know you were going to go to the games?
Oh, not until the final event. So I woke up on Sunday morning, and then the first event, on the final day, we'd compete for 3 days, And I had the worst like leg DOMs. Like my quads were just blown. And then we basically had an event which finished with 40 burpee box jump overs at 30-inch, which we had to step down. And we'd not really trained any step downs ever. Well, not ever. Any step downs in the last 6 months. We'd trained so many burpee box jump overs, but anyway, I wasn't used to this like extra blowing up the quad feeling, and just, like relatively fell apart in that event and went into the final with a 26 point.
24, 26.
I was in third going into the final. 26 points behind first, but I knew it was a good workout for me. I knew it was a bad workout for the people above me. And just intentionally tried to just draw them into chasing me, basically, and knowing that they would fall apart. And some of the standards are pretty strict, and things happened, but it ended up basically I crossed the line, and then I needed to beat him by I think 8 spots, which is quite a lot in that field, which wasn't deep. And we just saw people coming over the line, and he finished I think last in the heat, the guy I needed to beat.
Yeah, I gotta admit that watching that event, I was really nervous going into it, because that being in third, having been in first basically the entire event, and having that, essentially blown a huge lead, it like the pressure was on. And I think honestly, Toby executed that event. That's part of the reason that he is now going to the CrossFit Games, is because of how he held his composure together when, basically the shit hit the fan in that workout. Like, by going out fast, he baited both of the guys that he needed to put distance between to go out with him. And the guy that was in first that had the big lead, went with Toby on the first round. It was a deadlift. The workout was deadlift, handstand, push-up, ring muscle up. And Toby went fast, unbroken on the first round, and basically drug them all out with him. And then the guy who was in first, even in the second round, it was 4-round workout. Three-round workout?
Yeah, and he went to singles on the deadlift.
Yeah, he was already at singles on the deadlift. And I remember looking over at Haley, we were watching, and I was like, this is happening right now.
The commentator's like, I don't think this is the best strategy. And I'm like, oh, this is...
Yeah. It probably wasn't the best strategy to get the fastest possible time for you.
But it's one of those situations where, like you said, the pressure was on, but it wasn't really. It's out of my control at that point. Like, I can do what I can do, but I have to hope things fall into place. Like, those guys might have been smart enough to just like take a step back, and because I think they ended up taking like both like 20th and 18th or something, which like maybe if they now knew what they know, they would have just like chilled a bit more and tried to come in 10th, and there's not much I can do about it. But that's why the sport is fun, and that's why I like competing in person. I think online competitions are lame, and I think athletes should compete in person for that reason. It's actually a sport. And yeah, like that last event, watching it back is pretty fun.
And so what was it like when you knew you were going?
Like we didn't know. We knew on paper, but there's always like, what scores they're going to give and blah, 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 and are people appealing and things like that. So, but I was just like, the main emotion was just relief, to be honest, because going into that event, I was the clear favourite, which I've not had that before going into any event. And so it was a weird, like, I always kind of have myself as like an underdog and all that kind of stuff, which is like not an easier mentality to have, but it's definitely a less pressure mentality. And it was cool to go into an event as the favorite and win it, and then kind of have that like, cool, like things do happen.
And so very early in the conversation, I said I'd circle back to one thing, which we have not done yet, which is your type 1 diabetes. How does that affect you in training? Does it come up, or is it relevant at all? Is there things you have to do? Oh, speaking of which, he's chugging a Gatorade for those just listening to the audio version.
My mouth is dry from talking crap about myself. Yeah, it affects me. It still affects me a lot every day. I mean, even yesterday I went on a walk, and getting back was interesting with my fiance. I basically had a low halfway on the walk, and we're like, cool, we've got like a mile to go until we get home, and I'm walking all weird and things like that. So it definitely still affects me. I still have multiple lows a day. Low blood sugar. When I say low, I mean low blood sugar.
Is that something you can anticipate, or you were just kind of being a little reckless?
You can. The thing is, there's so many different factors that are involved with managing blood sugar. So it's not even just like carbohydrates in, or like, it's not even like people, you can base your insulin usage on your carbohydrate intake is the fundamentals to it. Okay. But with that, there's so many other factors that go into it, like insulin sensitivity, which can be affected by exercise, prior day nutrition and glycogen stores. The weather can affect it.
Yeah, I was gonna say humidity is a huge factor.
Like stress can affect it. It's just sort of like all these different things. And so like on paper, it's simple enough, but in reality, it's never 1 + 1 with injecting insulin.
And it definitely affects performance in a workout, because when I was over in Dubai and coaching him during Dubai Fitness Champs, there was an event that I don't remember which event it was specifically, but he went out there and just looked flat for the entire event. It's not that it was a bad performance, or like it wasn't that he didn't execute well or wasn't fit enough or made a mistake. He just was flat for the entire event. And as soon as he came off, he was like, I felt like I was having a low. He checked his blood sugar and it was super low.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got his blood sugar back up, next event was a couple hours later, looked like he, himself again. So there's definitely a clear performance impact as well if you can't manage it well. And part of that's out of his control in this sport, because, sometimes we don't even know when the events are going to be. The type of event really seems to affect how much how much he needs to impact his blood sugar.
Do you have any T1D brothers or sisters in this sport?
No.
You're the only one that we could think of?
Yeah, I think there was a team athlete.
Do we count them?
2 years ago.
Just kidding.
hey, I'm
team
a
athlete
team
2 years
athlete.
ago who was basically came up on Instagram apologizing to her team because she messed up in the last event because her blood sugar management was poor.
I was kidding, team people. We're going to have our team on the podcast next week.
And that's
Stay
why.
tuned.
Because I've been thinking like, would I ever do a team? And I'm thinking like, with my blood sugar, it's not as too unpredictable, but at some point at the games, I'm probably going to go into an event with non-ideal blood sugar. Like, I have no hesitation in my mind that is going to happen. And when it's an individual sport, you're like, cool, like I have to just take that on the chin and like do what I can, or.
And when it's low, there's no question.
And
like I'm
you're
low right
cool.
now.
Well, if the
can you throw up a signal for us when we're watching? Like when it's low, you just throw up the deuces or something.
I might not need a signal. It might be that obvious.
Oh, really?
Like doing it as an individual is fine, but if I was in a team, there's that sucks for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I anticipate going to the games same as training. Like this afternoon, just coming in to do some skills to start. Like I was having low blood sugar, and it's a simple fix. You literally just I just had a Gatorade and some gushers or whatever, and
how quickly does it fix?
It depends on whether there's still insulin in my system, or how low it is, or what carbohydrates I have, or whether I had a low 2 hours before that. Again, it's never a 1 + 1. But generally, 10, 15 minutes, and you can start to get your blood sugar back up.
Dang, that's so crazy. That's just a whole nother element you got to deal with.
Yeah, it's like he is consciously controlling something that our autonomic nervous system just controls for us, that we don't ever have to think about. It would be like, it's almost the equivalent of your brain doesn't subconsciously control breathing, and so that you would only breathe if you remembered to breathe. I think it's almost that essential to life, and it's really very similar to that concept.
Let's knock on wood here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. All right, I'm knocking. All right. So you said you had some ambulance. You called it something ambulance.
Cool outs.
Yeah. Is there any concern of that happening in competition?
Oh yeah. There's never a 0% chance.
And when that happens, is it kind of like you can taper back to prevent it, or it just kind of comes on and it's like you're just in the thick of it? I don't know if I made sense in my question.
Yeah, I know. Basically, is there
a point where you can dial it back so it doesn't go that
that's
extreme?
always the point should be before it gets low, right? I have a continuous glucose monitor where you can see it crashing, and that's the point we should try and get on it. But often in the times where I've had the ambulance call outs, it's like, I can't even remember like the hour prior to the ambulance call. I'm so far gone at that point.
For your previous call outs, what activities were you doing? Are they all, never mind, there's a big smile there.
No, it depends, like loads of different ones. Normally it seems, oh, that might have been loud. That was right into the mic, sorry. Normally it's I like nighttime when I'm in bed. I've actually got a funny story. So this is one of the first times I stayed at my now fiance's house. We go to bed, and as you do when you're teenagers, you know, things happen. Anyway, I remember waking up an hour, I don't know, would have been an hour later, caressing someone's leg, and it turns out it was her mum's leg. And
what?
Yeah, and like her mum, I didn't know, I was like passed out. But basically they'd be trying to feed me like this like syrup for like the last hour and a half. And so I went to bed thinking I was getting it on with my fiance, and then I woke up actually just caressing my mother-in-law's leg.
What the heck?
And then her dad is standing at the door like just like shook, like what is happening?
So you're like, your brain's like half asleep and you think it's still her, and
I'm like not in the room still, but like what is left of me in the room is caressing someone's leg.
They found that funny?
Yeah, they found it funny. They took it
good.
well. They took it well.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right, so what's the plans for the games, Coach? And then I'll ask you.
Make
What's your
sure
goal?
we take a bottle of Gatorade out onto the floor.
Oh, not for the diabetes. But just
We're gonna clear that one with medical staff before we go out. No, the plan for the games. I mean, he's a rookie, so you know, I think if you look at most people's rookie season, you know, the expectations are to go out there and compete and try to place himself in a position where he can finish the weekend and feel really good about the season. I mean, if you think about it, most people that are watching this podcast at some point, maybe not everybody that's watching this podcast, but there's a lot of people that are watching. They're like, I want to be a CrossFit Games athlete. And they would be so stoked just to be a qualifier here. Toby's already got that done. He's a qualifier. He's going to the CrossFit Games. And in all the conversations we've had, we're not trying to go there and, you know, just be present for the CrossFit Games. The goal wasn't just to get here and be like, hey, I'm having fun at the CrossFit Games. Having fun should be part of it, but it's to go out there and compete. And I don't want to. We've had a conversation about what the expectation is and where he wants to finish, but I don't want to say that for him.
Yeah, I'm not looking for like a participation medal, and like there's a lot of people that I've met and spoken to who like the end goal for them is just to qualify, and it's like, well, actually, what I've learned, especially in the last 5 weeks I've been training for the games, is like, no, the work, like literally your job has just started now. Like if you want to be a professional athlete or have a profession in the sport, it is all about this competition or this level of competition, which means that everything prior is pretty irrelevant, right? And so yeah, like I think the sport is past the point of rookies can go to the games and podium. Like I don't think the sport is there anymore in the era of like Froning and Fraser. I think like rookies like are pushing very, very well if they finish top 10. Like I think Hatfield last year was 10th.
And look at the season that he's had
weird,
since then.
It was different kind of games, but yeah, and then the season he's had since that finish. So I think almost having performance goals with how deep this field is kind of irrelevant. I just want execution goals. Like it'd be really, really cool coming away from the games being like, I maximized every single event. And like, I know if I do that, I can place very, very well. Do I think I can win it if I maximize every single event? Probably not. But like it's games won, and hopefully we'll see what happens to the CrossFit Games, but hopefully by games 5 or whatever competition I'm doing at that point, we can be in a position where, yeah, if you maximize every event, you can win. But do I expect that this year? No. But the goal is the same regardless.
That's cool. Another thing, we just launched your shirt yesterday, and I think they have until, do you remember the date?
You said you'd ship them out on July 18th. Is that the
They
final
ship
order
out.
date?
Well, go to trainingthinktank.com right now. If you want to support Toby, the proceeds go to help fun your travel there. What made you design that shirt? Tell them what it says. I'll put a picture on the screen.
It says, young buck, never tamed. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that deep about it. Like,
You just want a cool little vibey shirt.
It's like, I don't know. People are like, what do your tattoos mean? Like, I don't know. I just like
See, that's the right answer.
I don't know.
Yeah, like.
Sometimes it's cool to get deep, and then other times it's like, no, this is just some shit I made.
Yeah, it never has to be that deep. It's just like it's just a cool top. And it makes a big difference, actually, if you order it. I didn't know the deal, really. I just wanted to make a cool t-shirt, and you guys are like, yeah, everything's going to you. So I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. So help me out.
So if you like hearing his story here and want to support him, head over to trainingthinktank.com and grab yourself a Toby shirt. Any final words, Kyle?
No, it's been a lot of fun to coach Toby. Not only is he obviously a good athlete, but he's just a lot of fun to coach. Like it's been a good year of shit talking and all of that. So I'm excited to see him continue to. He's the kind of person who you coach and you also want to see him do well because
you coach people you don't want to see do well.
Yeah, tons of
dick. No, I get what you mean. And I'm just happy that I didn't need any captions. I actually understood you pretty well.
Perfect.
Did you put on a different accent during the podcast? I feel like when we're on the floor.
I don't know. I'm trying to speak as best I can.
This is his American accent.
It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a question.
Yeah.
So because of you being on site for the past couple of weeks and me being hyper aware of every time I have to go, when you ask me something or say something, that makes me feel like complete shit. I just feel like I don't want to keep doing that, especially when you have to hum back to back. It's like, oh. But I always wonder, do UK people have the same problem with us?
I'm pretty good. My fiance can't understand anything that doesn't sound like the Queen's English.
Really? So if me and her were hanging out, she'd be like, huh?
Yeah, she'd struggle. But like in the UK, there's so many different accents anyway. So like we're pretty in tune.
I mean, we have lots of accents.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you though? Like,
yes, very much.
I think so.
I could tell the difference between you and Florence's accent very clearly.
And we're both
the first time I met you.
We both speak pretty posh.
I told Haley, I was like, yeah, Florence has the most British accent I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
It was like exact when you see someone on TV with a British accent, like Florence's accent is that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like Queen's English.
Yeah.
Posh.
Another thing, let me go ahead and ask this question, all about accents here. So whenever you guys come stateside, all the girls are like, ooh, his accent. Does that same thing happen when the American guys go over?
Nah, you guys aren't really liked in the UK, I'll be honest.
Even the accent, there's nothing about it? They're like...
Well, I'm also not a woman looking for an American accent.
But you never hear... I mean, I'm not a woman looking for a British accent.
I mean, also, I don't think I've had any woos here.
Yes, you did, at Costco.
Yeah.
You got to tell them about the Costco
She was
story.
like a 50-year-old lady getting me to say y'all, which is horrible.
Yep.
Anyway.
A 50-year-old lady fell in love with Toby at Costco while he was here.
Did you get a discount?
No.
There's no discounts at Costco. You know
it's
that.
already discount.
Okay.
But I don't know the answer.
Was she cute?
No.
Oh, you're married. Never mind. All right.
I'll
Well,
answer it
that's
for
a
him,
good
so he
place to
doesn't
wrap
have
it up,
to.
boys. We'll see you next time.